You know, it's a very curious thing, this business of awakening. People often imagine awakening to be some great arrival, some final destination, where the enlightened one sits upon a mountain-top radiating serenity like a cosmic lamp. But the truth is far stranger and far more intimate. Awakening isn't an achievement, it's an unraveling. It is the sudden recognition that the person you thought you were was only a costume, an outfit stitched together from childhood fears, cultural expectations, borrowed beliefs, and all the little performances we put on to be accepted, to be loved, to be seen as someone. And when that costume begins to loosen, when it slips from your shoulders and falls to the ground, you discover something wonderfully terrifying. You are not who you were pretending to be. You are something far deeper, far softer, far more spacious than the tidy little identity you once protected so fiercely. But you see, the moment you begin to awaken to this truth, something else happens. You begin to notice that not everyone around you is entirely comfortable with your transformation, because people don't love you not really. They love the version of you that fits their story, and when you begin to awaken, you stop playing that role. You stop reciting the lines, you stop dancing to the old rhythm. Suddenly, you're not willing to engage in the same dramas. You're not interested in pretending to be upset when you're not. You no longer flatter someone's insecurity just to maintain the illusion of closeness. And you find yourself drifting, almost accidentally, away from people who once felt so familiar. Not because you dislike them, not because you think yourself above them, but simply because the frequency changes. Like two radio stations that were once aligned, suddenly, static, you begin to tune into something quieter, something gentler, something far more honest, and those who still depend on noise, on conflict, on gossip, on the comforting chaos of emotional turbulence, cannot quite join you. It's as if you stepped out of a crowded marketplace, full of shouting vendors and clashing voices, into a quiet forest clearing. And as you breathe that silence for the first time, you realize, ah, this is what I've been missing. But the people still in the marketplace will call after you. Where are you going? Why are you leaving us? Why are you changing? And if you listen carefully, beneath the surface of those questions is another voice whispering, why are you no longer validating my story of who you are? You see, awakening disrupts the social contract, the unspoken agreement that says, I'll stay who I've always been if you stay who you've always been. But you didn't. You couldn't. The tide turned, the old skin cracked, and something ancient within you began to stretch its wings. Now, most people don't really like wings. They prefer cages, comfortable ones lined with familiar habits and predictable patterns. And so when you begin to slip through the bars, they panic. They say, you're abandoning us. But in truth, you're simply releasing yourself. And here's the paradox. Awakening makes you far more loving, far more compassionate, far more open than you ever were before. But it also makes you far less tolerant of anything that isn't real. You can sit with someone's sorrow, but you can no longer participate in their self-deceptions. You can listen to someone's fears, but you won't indulge their illusions. You can offer kindness, but you won't offer yourself as a sacrifice to keep their narrative alive. You no longer mistake attachment for love, obligation for friendship, or guilt for loyalty. And so, naturally, some people fall away, not with anger, not with drama, simply with the quiet finality of a leaf loosening from a branch. People often think this is a failure. They say, I'm losing everyone. Something must be wrong with me. But the truth is, nothing is wrong. You are simply shedding what cannot travel with you. Awakening is not an addition to your life. It is a subtraction, a purification, a gentle burning away of all that is false. Imagine you are a lamp covered in dust. You don't become brighter by effort. You become brighter because the dust falls away, and some of that dust takes the shape of people. People whose presence only made sense when you were dimmed. You must realize something very important. people are not lost. They are returned to their own path, returned to their own lessons, returned to the frequency where their story continues. And you are simply moving into a chapter where authenticity becomes the only language you can speak. It is not loneliness, it is spaciousness, the space where the self can finally breathe. But of course, we human beings are great hoarders of the past. We cling to old relationships long after they've outlived their purpose. We cling to outdated versions of ourselves like a child clutching a worn-out toy because familiarity feels safer than truth, yet awakening whispers, "Let it go, let it go, let it go." You see, the universe has a peculiar habit of moving people out of your life the moment you stop pretending. Not as a punishment, but as liberation. Once you drop the mask, those who loved the mask will drift away. Only those who can see your face will remain. That is the exquisite loneliness of awakening, but also its most profound gift. And so, as this process unfolds, you begin to experience a very strange sensation. A kind of inner quiet that feels both unsettling and deeply peaceful. Because when the noise leaves your life, you begin to hear the subtler music, the hum of your own being, the spaciousness of consciousness itself. You begin to sense the world not as something happening to you, but as something happening through you. And strangely, this new awareness makes you far more sensitive to the energies around you. You can feel almost immediately when a conversation is dishonest. You can sense the tension beneath someone's cheerful facade. You know instantly when you are being pulled into a drama that has nothing to do with your soul. It's not supernatural. It's simply clarity. You begin to realize that much of what people call connection is merely an exchange of insecurities, two egos reassuring each other that their illusions are safe. But once you have glimpsed the truth, even for a moment, your participation in such exchanges becomes impossible. Not because you're better, but because you're different. The truth changes you, and when you change, your relationships must either transform with you, or fall away like fruit that's ripened beyond its season. You see, human relationships are not static things. They are living organisms, constantly evolving, shifting, dissolving, being born anew. But we treat them as possessions. I've known him for 10 years. She's been my friend since childhood, as if time alone should guarantee closeness. But closeness isn't measured in years. It's measured in awareness. A stranger can meet you at the depth of your being, while someone you've known your entire life can still be shaking hands with your mask. Awakening changes your proximity to people, not geographically, energetically. There are some people you simply cannot sit beside anymore, not because they are bad or unworthy, but because the conversation you once shared is no longer possible. They are speaking the language of the past, and you've learned to listen differently. You begin to hear not only the words people say, but the intention behind them, the frequency beneath them, the fear or longing they conceal. And you realize that most communication is not communication at all, it is negotiation, a bargaining of personas, a subtle exchange of emotional currency. But awakening brings you into a different economy altogether. You are no longer trading masks. You are no longer bargaining for validation. You are no longer willing to shrink yourself to keep another comfortable. You see, the great irony is that awakening doesn't inflate the ego as many imagine. It dissolves it. You become too honest to pretend, too aware to cling, too open to be trapped in the old patterns of need and approval. And that, quite naturally, creates distance with those who still speak the old language of fear. Think of it like this. If two people are walking together in a forest, and one suddenly sees a clearing, a beautiful open field filled with sunlight, they may walk toward it instinctively. But the other, still comfortable among the familiar shadows of the trees, may hesitate. "Where are you going?" they say. "Why are you leaving the path?" And the awakened one replies, "I'm not leaving. I'm simply seeing." But human beings, in their insecurity, interpret change as abandonment and truth as betrayal. And so you will be accused of all sorts of things. You're distancing yourself. You've changed. You think you're better than us. Or that old favorite, "You're cold." But awakening is not cold. It is warm. Warm with clarity, warm with honesty, warm with presence. The coldness is only in the illusions you've shed. When you no longer participate in someone's fear, they may interpret your neutrality as rejection. When you stop feeding someone's drama, they may call you distant. And when you stop enabling someone's self-deception, they may see you as unkind. But understand this: truth is not cruel. Illusion is fragile, and the moment you stop supporting it, the person who depends upon it feels suddenly naked. Not because you stripped them, but because you stopped holding the fabric in place. Awakening reveals the delicate fabric of human relationships. How many are built on unspoken agreements? I'll validate your illusions if you validate mine. I'll hide my truth if you hide yours. I'll keep pretending if you keep pretending. But once you see the game, you can't unsee it, and that's when the falling away begins. It is not a dramatic event. It is not a fiery confrontation. It is a quiet shift, subtle, gentle, but irreversible. You simply stop resonating with certain people. Their conversations drain you. Their expectations feel heavy. Their presence feels discordant. You are no longer a match for the person you once were, and those who depended on that version of you can no longer connect with who you are becoming. And so they drift. You might try to pull them back. Most people do at first. They reach out, they apologize, they explain, they justify, but all of this is merely the old self struggling to maintain old bonds. Eventually, with enough honesty, you realize something tender and heartbreaking. You cannot carry everyone into the next chapter of your life, not because they are unworthy, but because their path bends differently than yours. It is not rejection, it is divergence, like two rivers that once flowed together and then, almost imperceptibly, split into separate courses, each following the gravity of its own becoming. That is the nature of awakening. It doesn't give you more people. It gives you real people, fewer, perhaps, but deeper, more aligned, more true. People who meet you as you are, not as you were trained to be. People who don't want your mask, but your essence. People who don't need your drama, only your presence. People who recognize the same clearing in the forest and walk toward it with you. But before those new companions arrive, before the universe sends you people who resonate with your deeper truth, there is a period, sometimes long, sometimes brief, where you walk alone, and this solitude can feel like a kind of death. Not the dramatic sort of death, but a subtle one, a death of old identities, a death of familiar roles, a death of the old self that was stitched together from the expectations of others. You feel, at times, like a snake who has shed its skin, but not yet adjusted to the sensitivity of the new one. Everything feels too raw, too open, too exposed. You feel the breeze of life against you in ways you never noticed before. You feel the quiet, you feel the space, you feel the truth. And of course, truth often feels like loss, at least at first. Because you are losing the illusions that once gave you a sense of belonging. You are losing the relationships that depended on your unconsciousness. You are losing the noise that once drowned out your inner voice. But consider this: when a chrysalis dissolves, the caterpillar does not sit inside thinking, "Oh dear, I'm losing everything." It simply becomes fluid, a formless state, undefined, unidentifiable, something that cannot yet be called a butterfly and no longer qualifies as a caterpillar. It exists in a beautiful, unimaginable in-between. This is what awakening feels like. You dissolve, and all the identities that once clung to you, friendships, patterns, insecurities, comforts they dissolve with you. You are not broken, you are becoming, but people around you may not understand this. They may try to hold you to your old shape. They may say, "You're not yourself anymore," not realizing that this is precisely the point. You are no longer confined to the shape they once recognized. You are discovering your original form, and so the loneliness of awakening is not the loneliness of being abandoned. It is the loneliness of stepping into a deeper dimension of yourself where few have dared to go. It is the loneliness of authenticity. We are raised in a world where everyone wears masks, where the ego is a kind of costume party, and those with the most convincing disguises are celebrated as successful, popular, well adjusted. But the moment you remove your mask, you expose the quiet truth behind the performance, and truth is always intimate. Intimacy is always vulnerable. Vulnerability is always rare. Most people prefer the comfort of illusion, the warmth of familiar lies, the security of predictable patterns. And so, when you awaken, you become strange to them. You are no longer animated by the same fears. You are no longer motivated by the same rewards. You are no longer captivated by the same distraction. You become, in a curious way, foreign to the world you once knew. But this is not a tragedy. It is a birth. Have you ever noticed how, when a baby is born, it cries? Not because something is wrong, but because it has left a familiar place and entered a new one. The cry is not sorrow. It is recognition. This world is bigger than the one I knew. Awakening is a rebirth of this kind. It expands your world. It enlarges your awareness. It opens your senses in ways you cannot anticipate. And whenever awareness expands, something must be left behind. This leaving behind is not abandonment, it is evolution. Think of a mountain climber. As they ascend, the air becomes clearer but also thinner. Fewer people climb that high, the paths narrow, the silence widens, and yet the view, the view becomes extraordinary. The more deeply you awaken, the more you perceive beauty in places where most see nothing at all. A sunset becomes a cathedral, the sound of rain becomes a meditation. The simple act of breathing becomes a miracle, but not everyone can join you in this perception. Not because they are incapable, but because they are not ready. You cannot drag people into clarity. You cannot force someone to outgrow their illusions. You cannot coax someone into seeing the truth before their own heart is ripe. If you try, you will only cause friction, resentment, misunderstanding. You will find yourself speaking a language they cannot hear, offering insights they cannot yet digest, and they will insist that you are speaking nonsense. Awakening cannot be shared through argument. It can only be shared through resonance, and resonance requires readiness. So in this stage of your journey, when people fall away, you must understand that life is not punishing you, it is pruning you. It is making space for the relationships that are aligned with your deeper self. It is clearing the energetic clutter so that those who can walk with you, truly walk with you, have room to enter. You see, relationships grounded in illusion are heavy. Relationships grounded in truth are weightless. Truth doesn't pull on you, it doesn't tug at your sleeves, it doesn't demand, it doesn't bargain, it simply is. Truthful relationships arise effortlessly, like flowers blooming in spring. No coaxing, no forcing, no negotiation. They occur naturally when two beings recognize each other beyond the illusions, beyond the masks, beyond the stories they once carried. But before you meet such people, you must become one of them. And that requires solitude, a great deal of solitude. The kind of solitude where you begin to see your own mind clearly, where you catch the ego in its little performances, where you observe your impulses like passing clouds, where you learn to rest in your own presence without the need for distraction. Because the truth is this: if you cannot sit comfortably with yourself, You will always choose relationships that distract you from yourself. Awakening ends this pattern. It brings you back into your own center, your own breath, your own awareness. And in that awareness you realize something quite profound. You never truly lose people. You only lose the versions of them that cannot meet you as you awaken. Whoever is meant to stay will evolve with you. Whoever is not will find reasons to leave. This is not a failure, it is alignment. So do not lament the falling away. Do not cling to the branch when the fruit has ripened. Do not hold tightly to what life is gently releasing. For everything that leaves your life makes space for something truer to enter, and everything that remains because it resonates with the truth you have discovered within yourself. And so, my friend, if you find yourself in this strange season of life where familiar faces fade, old roles dissolve, and the world seems quieter than it used to be, do not be afraid. You are not disappearing, you are surfacing. You are not losing people, you are returning to yourself, because awakening is, and has always been, a homecoming, a soft, profound return to the simple truth that you are not here to be what others expect, nor to carry stories that were never yours to begin with. You are here to be awake, to be aware, to be fully alive in the astonishing mystery of your own existence. And as you walk this path, some will wave from the distance, some will fall behind, and some will join you in ways that feel effortless and true. But remember this, whoever can meet you in your authenticity will never be lost to you, and whoever cannot was never truly there. So go gently, go quietly, go honestly. Leave the doors of your heart open, not in expectation, but in trust. For life has a way of giving you the exact souls who resonate with your becoming. They will appear when the time is ripe, and they will recognize you, not by your mask, but by your presence. And when they do, you will realize that nothing was ever taken from you, only revealed. So let the old fall away, let the path clear itself, let the stillness come,